Sweet mother of natural justice. I thought that previously I'd dished out some pretty decent academic bitch slaps, but this one's gonna leave them all in the dust. Damn straight, I started off this week dead and fired, and anyone who can come back from the dead sure as hell can bitch slap someone into the next dimension. You see, the story when I left off to go and do a week's work on sciencey stuff measuring the spectra of various solvated electrons was this. Crazy cat lady decides she's going to write to my employer to get me fired by calling me a Nazi who hates women, who hates Anita Sarkeesian, and who has an army of skinheads who follow his every command. Which, of course, I didn't rise to, because crazy cat lady. Actually, now that I think about it, it wasn't just one letter, it was a letter-writing campaign.
People decide they're going to start a letter-writing campaign, or they're going to, people en masse are going to contact his employer.
With the intention of getting me fired.
I spoke as an employer, and I said, effectively, he is besmirching their reputation, and that they should basically give him the choice of either continuing to do these kinds of videos or continuing to be a scientist.
If you fucking lose your job, that's on you. If I lose my job for deciding to go online and have a message, that's not the person's job or fault that tried to fucking contact my employer. That's your fucking fault.
She then ups her game, not just bragging about her letter writing campaign.
Anyway, like I said, I'm not sorry. I did what I thought was right. It was a campaign. Other people wrote letters. Not just Bewildered Ape and not just me. But I won't say who, and I took down the channel. I took down the video, so you'll never know who said that they would.
But how she thinks this got me fired, and then reveling in how she thinks she's ruined my career.
Because he got mad at me because I made fun of him for losing his job.
And then boasts how there's nothing, absolutely nothing, that people can do to her.
And somebody else sent me a comment, they're going to contact my boss, which is apparently my husband. But part of the reason I wanted to do this video is these people can't do anything to me.
So sorry, I thought I could just hear karma calling there. Yeah, that's when I call bullshit on her. Not only did I not lose my job, I also corrected her on the idea that there was nothing, absolutely nothing, that people could do. Because just like any business, if your CEO is going to be a loon who's writing letters to people's employers, yeah, people have the right to know that sort of thing and take their business elsewhere. The whole thing had a sort of Amy's Bakehouse Company ambience to it. Crazy psycho woman is a complete bitch to the customers.
Approximately 2 years ago, these reviewers and these bloggers decided to make up lies and say that they ate the food and it was disgusting.
Amy's nuts.
I am going to really hurt somebody if they send back my cake. Anzi, get out of here. Don't you ever come back here. You little weenie, keep walking. You. Give me a break. This is, you guys, I make excellent food.
And then calls people who respond a hate mob.
I have issues with customers that are trying to be online bullies and say horrible things.
Online bullies?
They're online bullies and write things that are not true. This guy came in that started this entire online bullying.
The next day he went and gave us a review. Oh my God. My wife, she was...
Well, retaliated.
You wrote back to him?
Oh, yeah.
Right. Well,
why?
I told him I thought he was a loser, he was a moron. I didn't take him. They called me Crazy Amy B because I stood up to them. And our babies are cats. They're my whole life besides my husband and my business. I speak feline. Meow, 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 meow.
People say she's crazy just because she has a few dozen cats. But can anyone who loves animals that much really be crazy?
You're hearing my animals in the background. The dogs and the cat, they all gather around me whenever I'm doing anything.
And then she goes on Kitchen Nightmares, where it emerges that the management was actually taking the tips from the waitresses and pocketing them themselves.
Wow, $10 tip.
Yeah.
That's nice. For you?
Of course, yeah. Why not?
Do you think the girls deserve some tips tonight?
No, they get hourly.
Let me ask that table there. Sir, the tip that you left the young lady server, the owner takes the tips.
That's horrible. No. Okay.
Don't with me.
Yeah.
And then they wonder why people are saying bad things about them online. Yeah, what do you think happened next?
That we didn't write that are from real customers. No, good reviews, real customers that have supported us for 6
Oh, and in the end, they ended up going bust because they threatened to stab some customers. Yeah, karma. It's only a bitch if you are one. And that's kind of how it broke down here. Within 24 hours, the woman who pitilessly mocked when she thought she had cost someone their job and destroyed their career.
Because he got mad at me because I made fun of him for losing his job.
Was brought a massive dose of karma when people simply started telling the truth about their vice president. And the whole thing had even more bite to it, as no sooner had they started complaining that people were telling the truth about their company, with fake reviews, it turns out that their vice president had earlier written several fake reviews posing as a customer of her own company. And would you believe it? She gave the company a glowing review, to which the owner responded saying how great it was to have satisfied customers. Oh, giving yourself a glowing review. Now that's what I call social justice warrior ethics in business. Now bear in mind we live in a world where feminists whining about dongle jokes can cost someone their job. But it doesn't seem that these social justice warriors were quite so keen to be held up to their own standards. Now, for some reason, the owner didn't apologize for the behavior of his vice president. Oh no, that would have been far too civilized. No, it wasn't his wife's actions that had brought this on their company by writing letters to people's employees to try and get them fired and ruin their lives, and then bragging how she thought she'd ruined people's lives and that there was nothing, absolutely nothing, that people could do in return. Nah, it was everybody else's fault for proving her wrong.
When you're standing here talking to my husband, what about when I cooked for you?
Who distracted you then?
Everybody. What are you talking about?
Blaming everybody again.
Now, just as I pointed out how Laughing Witch's boast was stupid in the extreme, I also, being the kind-hearted soul that I am, told her how she might best solve the problem. And that was to put out a groveling apology. However, I really didn't have time to keep tabs on the details of all of this because I was off to Germany to do some really quite intensive research because, the unknown's not going to discover itself. Now, in the meantime, the video that I put up received no less than 4 privacy complaints on this, and all were dismissed by YouTube. So I left it at that. Hell, the whole thing had this sort of almost perfect symmetrical karma to it. I really didn't think that it could be improved. But never underestimate the stupidity of social justice warriors, because this transcends mere karma into the sort of epic legends that you only find in the ancient world.
Release the Kraken!
So did Laughing Witch take my advice and apologize to all the people out there saying how sorry she was that she tried to ruin someone's life simply because they disagreed with her online, and how respecting people's privacy is a two-way street, in that if you joyfully desecrate the privacy of others...
It was a campaign. Other people wrote letters. Not just Bewildered Ape and not just me. But I won't say who, and I took down the channel. I took down the video, so you'll never know who said that they would. Anyway, like I said, I'm not sorry. I did what I thought was right.
And savor in their suffering, or what you perceive to be their suffering.
Because he got mad at me because I made fun of him for losing his job.
You really don't have much meat for complaint when you get a taste of your own medicine. So did she apologize?
I don't know how to make this go away. We've apologized.
Well, not entirely. First of all, despite the fact that I said I really wasn't the one that she had to apologize to, she tried to do it several times using Kevin Logan as her emissary.
I did want to mention that I did offer to apologize to you through Kevin Logan as my emissary twice, and you would not hear of it.
Pro tip, Jennifer. If you're going to try and apologize to me, don't choose an emissary who mocked me over my dad dying of cancer. Yeah, recently I brought up that my dad was dying of cancer. Obviously a fairly traumatic thing, impacts me greatly. And yes, 100% the social justice warrior community, the people claiming the high moral ground are the same people who are happy to use my dad dying of cancer as a cheap point-scoring exercise. And it's like, for fuck's sake. Do you need a hug, Thunderfoot? Come here, you poor darling. Now, ignoring Jennifer's sensitive choice of emissary.
So yeah, so he's a horrible scumbag, and anyone who supports him from this point on, consider yourself my enemy. Genuinely, I'm not even fucking joking there.
Further, she thought that the best way to get on the good side of the people she was hoping to apologise to was by calling them fanboys.
And I hope with this apology, you'll consider calling off your fanboys?
Yeah, I don't think you've quite grasped the fundamental reason that you were doing this apology in the first place. It was to placate, by a genuine act of contrition, the thousands out there who think that what you were trying to do and trying to get people fired because you disagreed with them on the internet was an incredibly douchey move. People who could have ended up losing their jobs with their careers ruined because of this sort of letter writing campaign. In a world where merely a dongle joke in front of a feminist can cost someone their job. In a world where being a veteran who calls bullshit on a feminist who thinks that she got post-traumatic stress disorder from Twitter will cause that feminist to write to his commanding officer to try and get him disciplined. If you're in the military and are harassing me about my PTSD, that's her Twitter PTSD, expect that I will be speaking to your commanding officer. Even for a feminist, that is really, really messed up. You tell her that the post-traumatic stress disorder that people get from watching people they know, love and care about being blown up in front of their eyes is really, really not the same thing as someone calling you Smelody on Twitter. You tell her that and she'll try and mess up your career. And this is no hypothetical about she will try and mess up your career. This is what she says. I get it every day. I've decided I'm contacting commanding officers, as I just did. They had their info on their Twitter. I just contacted someone's commanding officer. Really, Melody, you tried to mess up someone's military career because they didn't think that you had post-traumatic stress disorder from Twitter. And in an almost surreal case in Canada, where merely disagreeing with a feminist online led to someone getting arrested and potentially facing 6 months in jail. Or Shirtgate, the first guy in the history of mankind to land a probe on a comet. Or Tim Hunt, the Nobel Prize winner, who was sacked without even being asked the details, merely on the accusation of a feminist. And yeah, damn straight, in a world where a Nobel Prize winner can be sacked merely on the accusations of a feminist whose stated goal is ending your job, and thereby your career should be regarded as the most serious charge that it is. And damn straight, you can bet your bottom dollar if I had actually been fired, they would be doing their little happy dances in the street right now. And damn straight, your apology to everyone should have reflected just how serious what you did was, and how serious you are for making amends for it. But for your apology, I really don't think you're going to placate anyone by spitting in their faces and calling them fanboys. And so sincere was this apology to me that the apology came with a link to a Fund Anything campaign asking for $25,000, saying how I was an evil, evil man.
She made the mistake of running into this very, very evil man. It's pretty bad. It's economic cyber terrorism. We've apologized.
Now, wow, that's what I call a sincere apology from a social justice warrior. Naturally, he leaves out the bit where his wife was writing letters to ruin my career and how she mocked pitilessly when she thought she'd succeeded. Now, she was some completely innocent damsel, wandering happily and innocently and carefree through the internet until she had the misfortune to bump into the evil Dr. Mason.
She made the mistake of running into this very, very evil man,
who viciously cyber-ravaged this helpless maiden. For what purpose, only his glowing red eyes can tell.
Recently, we had a little encounter with a fellow named Thunderfoot, aka Dr. Phil Mason, and he does some YouTube channel, some experiments for scientific stuff, but mostly he seems to generate his time doing videos on misogyny and anti-feminism. We're putting fake pictures on our posting here.
What is the point? If I say, yeah, I sent a letter, and I don't know if it's mine or not, if you can prove it's mine, what? Who cares? I don't care. That's dumb. Gotcha! Get this. Let's get real.
Putting fake pictures on our posting here. Then they're going to our Google Plus page and putting all sorts of photographs on there that I can't remove. Some of it's pretty bad, quite nasty. They're attacking my wife. They're attacking me.
Remember him? Remember? The murders of all those kids? That's what we're fighting. That's what writing this letter campaign is about. It's not about Thunderfoot the man. It's not about his free speech. But it's pure hate. This is the kind of man that listens to Thunderfoot. This is the enemy.
I support my wife. I think she made the mistake of running into this very, very evil man.
Okay? Taking down Thunderfoot stops this kind of stuff.
And won't somebody think of the employees and his cute pet dog?
This is who he's hurting. These technicians and my dispatchers and my estimators and bookkeeper. These people all have families, children, wives, homes. I wanted, if he's watching this, I wanted him to see the faces of the folks that he's hurting. These are all innocent people. I'm innocent.
Nah, forget those letters to someone in his employer calling them a Nazi who hates women and is racist to Muslims. No, none of this was brought about by their actions. It was all this evil man's fault. Shit, talk about using a human shield. I mean, imagine Amy's baking company going all, but won't somebody think about the innocent employees you will be hurting when you write a review saying that we pocket their tips?
If I went and asked every customer when they leave a tip that it goes straight to the owner and not to the server, do you think they'd be astounded? Let me ask that table there.
Or to look at it in another way, it simply shows that they don't care enough about their employees to make a simple, honest apology for the rather self-evident douchey behavior of their vice president. Or to fire his vice president, his wife. After all, she makes it perfectly clear that that's what she would do if it was one of her employees doing something like this.
I am an employer. If my employees are making hate videos, I think his employer should look at his YouTube channel and decide, what does this mean? And have Phil Mason explain himself.
Hey, it's a damn shame because I liked her content. She's a fucking good person.
I'm an employer. If I had a young man who was doing the shit that Phil Mason is doing, and I mostly hire young men, I'd can him.
I wanted, if he's watching this, I wanted him to see the faces of the folks that he's hurting.
And you know what? I would be so grateful for my customers who turned him in, because that is a stain on the reputation of that university. I don't care if he's a subcontractor. I don't care. It means nothing to me.
She made the mistake of running into this very, very evil man. He has doesn't care that he's conflicting this type of damage.
I don't care if he's a subcontractor. I don't care. It means nothing to me.
This is my little girl doggy best friend here, Honey Boo Boo. And she and I really, really would appreciate your support in this difficult time. And anything that you can contribute to help us get through this onslaught in this winter.
Further, it also shows a certain lack of understanding of supply and demand. The number of people renovating porcelain tubs is probably fairly constant. And if your business is going bust, your employees will still have the skills to fulfill that demand.
Keeping the lights on and keeping our people paid so they don't leave.
That is, they will still be mending porcelain tubs. It's just they won't be doing it for a company where the vice president is some crazy cat lady. But like I say, this is merely artful karma, a thing for amateurs and fail videos. This transcends that. Because it turns out that Agent of Doubt thought this number of $25,000 that they were trying to raise from their Fund Anything campaign was a rather strange number to just pluck out of the air. And it is. Why 25,000? And why did they need it less than a week after I revealed how viciously their vice president had acted? To keep the lights on? They just wanted $25,000 after just 1 week? You know, because reasons? So Agent of Doubt started looking around the local courts in the area. And what do you know? They had a court ruling against them for $25,000. A ruling that was made weeks before I had this exchange with them. You have got to be shitting me.
In the description box, she put a link to a Fund Anything campaign. Here's that Fund Anything campaign. It's called Brigading Cyber Review Attack Defense Fund. And she's trying to raise $25,000 as a goal. What else could that $25,000 be going towards? Well, if you do a Maryland court record search, and just do a case search right here, and then plug in the name that she dropped herself to Thunderfoot.
USA 9. Two Prince George's County business owners say they are fighting for their company's survival under attack from thousands of online commentators.
Online bullies.
They're online bullies.
The couple is asking for help from the FBI, from Google, and from WUSA 9 to tell their story and clear their business's name.
The emails have stopped and the phone calls have dwindled.
The target was Jenny Keller, the company's VP.
You'll get a list of cases, and if you just pick the one right here that's active in 2015, you'll find that there's a judgment coming against them from Wells Fargo Bank starting in August of 2015, 2 months before the drama with Thunderfoot.
Oh, but it gets better. Because shortly after Agent of Doubt drops this bombshell, they make an update to their Fund Anything page saying that $25,000 really won't make any difference to them anyway because they're about to file for bankruptcy because they're at least $100,000 in the hole, and that was before any of this stuff with me.
I wanted, if he's watching this, I wanted him to see the faces of the folks that he's hurting.
Then, of course, they put up this privacy complaint against Agent of Doubt because, you know, people shouldn't be able to see public court records. And as far as I know, that privacy complaint hasn't yet been acted on. That is, they were going bankrupt long before the despicable actions of their vice president became public. And deep down, you know they would have loved to have pinned this on me. You know, look how this evil Dr. Mason bankrupted our company.
Recently, we had a little encounter with a fellow named Thunderfoot, a.k.a. Dr. Phil Mason.
And yeah, bitches, it is Dr. Mason. Normally I and no one else gives a shit, but seeing as you want to make a point of it, yeah, it's Dr. Mason, son of Professor Mason. And I'm also the bringer of capital karma. Because it turns out that Jennifer and the local news they went to...
USA 9. Two Prince George's County business owners say they are fighting for their company's survival under attack from thousands of online commentators trying to shut them down.
The couple is asking for help from the FBI, from Google, and from WUSA 9 to tell their story and clear their business's name.
And for everybody to be like, oh, you wouldn't have to get a job. You know, when you finally grow up and you actually get a job, you will have a responsibility to your employer not to ruin their brand.
To tell the world how they were being subjected to cyber terrorism.
It's pretty bad. It's economic cyber terrorism.
Yeah, sure they left out the bit about the letter writing campaign calling me a Nazi who hated women. Sure, that letter writing campaign to ruin someone's career wasn't cyber terrorism. That was YouTube activism.
The target was Jenny Keller, the company's VP, married to the owner, and a YouTube activist.
Bewildered Ape had proposed a letter writing campaign against Phil Mason, aka Thunderfoot, because of, basically Thunderfoot is said some terrible things and he has a terrible channel. But the real target of this is not Phil Mason the man. It is his subscribers, who basically are Nazis.
While me, for simply pointing out the stupidity of her arguments, am a provocateur.
The target was Jenny Keller, the company's VP, married to the owner, and a YouTube activist. In February, Keller kicked a hornet's nest. She attached her real name to a letter and video she sent to the employer of the British scientist and anti-feminist YouTube provocateur Phil Mason, known as Thunderfoot to his 400,000 subscribers.
Shit, no bias there then. And yeah, being the professional news organization they are, they decided to contact me for comment.
And tonight, Mason didn't respond to my request for comment, but he did retweet a supporter's video mocking Keller's apology.
Pray tell, how did they contact me for comment? Did they email me? Did they call? Nope. Apparently, they sent me a single tweet 24 hours or less before the broadcast of the piece. Oddly enough, me, about the same time, was spending 12 hours a day in a research lab making kit for measuring stuff that's never been done before.
And tonight, Mason didn't respond to my request for comment.
Yeah, that's because I had no idea you'd even asked for one. But maybe I should give you an equal shake of the dice. Today, Garrett Hake didn't respond to my request for a comment about the gamma rate reporting of WUSA 9. Because let's be real, Garrett, how poor do your journalistic skills have to be when you're doing a story about someone emailing someone's employer not to be able to get their email? Nah, for WUSA 9, we have professional, ethical, journalistic standards of sending someone who is working 12 hours a day in a lab a single tweet to someone who gets hundreds per day. And if they don't magically get to it in time, we'll just claim that they never responded.
And tonight, Mason didn't respond to my request for comment.
And interestingly, the clip that they use of me comes from this video, where I actually read out Laughing Witch's email to my bosses, and the one that she sent to the local newspapers and to the police. He is openly racist against Muslims. Now, at that point, you might think this is a troll, but I happen to know this is actually someone who actually really believes this crap, that you can actually be racist against an ideology. Most people think it's sporting if you're going to be racist, it needs to be against a race rather than an ideology, but whatever, she's an idiot. 1, he hates Muslims, Nazi ideology. 2, he hates women, and mostly feminists, Nazi ideology. His followers are mostly white male Nazi apologists, revisionist sympathizers who he commands like an army. Really. He openly supports Hitler. And the Nazi Holocaust is a good thing for humanity. But the pro-news team here didn't think that this was a relevant part of the story to focus on. No, this was the part that they needed to know about me.
Scientist and anti-feminist YouTube provocateur Phil Mason, known as Thunderfoot to his 400,000 subscribers.
Feminism I actually see in many ways as a more serious threat than things like creationism.
She hoped his university would silence or censor him.
And of course, all the white knights rushed to the aid of this poor, innocent, defenseless damsel who had done nothing more than engage in a letter-writing campaign to get someone fired and ruin their career.
I spoke as an employer, and I said, effectively, he is besmirching their reputation, and that they should basically give him the choice of either continuing to do these kinds of videos or continuing to be a scientist.
And send it to the police calling them a Nazi, and then start a Fund Anything campaign for $25,000. Curiously, exactly the same amount as a court ruling against them. And none of this made any difference anyway, because even before this instance, they were at least $100,000 in the hole and preparing to file for bankruptcy. David Futrell. Oh yeah, that's the sort of feminist he needs to defend. And the Daily Kos. They couldn't help but use this to show how the internet hates women. and the emissary of Laughing Witch.
Below, you will find a fundraising page set up to help pay the wages and therefore feed the families of the innocent people whose livelihoods have been put in danger by Thunderfoot and his incredibly malicious, evil and reckless actions. I ask you to look deeply inside your conscience and find it within yourself to give a few dollars or a few pounds or whatever you can to this fundraiser to try and help keep these innocent people in jobs, and to tell Thunderfoot and his ilk that this kind of activity is not fucking acceptable. So if you can spare anything, any amount of change in any denomination, go and click below and go show your support for hard-working people who don't deserve to get fucked over.
All banging on about how this was really nothing to do with the actions of Laughing Witch being a complete bitch.
Anyway, like I said, I'm not sorry. I did what I thought was right. And somebody else sent me a comment. They're going to contact my boss, which is apparently my husband. But part of the reason I wanted to do this video is these people can't do anything to me.
Seriously, how delusional do you have to be to get this far and still think that the only reason I did this stuff, it was nothing to do with all the crazy shit that she did? No, it was because she had a vagina.
So Thunderfoot and his army of misogynist dickheads have driven another atheist female from the community, a community that is vastly lacking in females in the first place.
Just because she had a vagina.
Because this is proper hate mob harassment shit. And surprise, surprise, Thunderfoot did it to a woman. Mm. Who'd have thunk it?
How delusional you have to be? Fat male feminist delusional.
And in the past he said, well, I'm not a misogynist, but yet he's driven another female atheist from the atheist community here on YouTube.
And of course, we had PZ Myers, the man who thinks that getting thrown off Free Thought blogs is somehow a blot on someone's character. Let's just have a little recap there, shall we, PZ? Since I left Free Thought blogs. Well, there was that minor incident where the co-founder of Free Thought blogs quit his own network because he thought it was so toxic. You know, this guy. Incidentally, you may be happy to note that Ed Brayton, after my departure from Free Thought blogs, where he vowed to drive me out of the community and have me forever be a pariah, we briefly met up in the YouTube comments section to reminisce about old times. And it went a little something like this. Lol, Ed, your mighty attempts to drive me out of the community as a pariah, which wouldn't by FTB standards count as harassment, if FTB is doing it of course, resulted in me losing about 300 subscribers. Almost every blogger on Free Thought blogs tried their hardest in one coordinated blow to poison the well against me. And only 300 out of about 150,000 people unsubscribed. That's only about 30 people for every person who wrote a blog. Face it, Ed, Free Thought blogs is a sinking ship. Oh, and pro tip, Ed, free speech is only a bad thing if you're a jerk. To which he responded, fuck you, Thunderfoot! Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you! That's the only response you'll ever deserve from me, you unethical asshole! And it's all you'll ever get. Guys, when that's your co-founder and he's quitting your network because he thinks it's too toxic, warning. Now, curiously, in a video entitled Free Thought Blogs and Feminism, I had some statistics in that video, one of which was the traffic for Free Thought blogs at the time. And what do you know? It's about halved since then. And in that same video, there's a screen cap of how much traffic I was getting at the time. And that was actually sort of comparable to the entire of Free Thought blogs at the time. And what do you know? That traffic has now increased by a factor of 3 to 4. And now, busy, this little infographic thing will help you see how driving me out of the community such that I will forever be a pariah has worked out for you and your social justice warriors. Shit, PC, it's almost like being capable of producing real content. And of course, real papers is more interesting than viewing some mean-spirited old man waxing on about his moral superiority and how everyone else is just assholes and mindless dude bros. And then to top this all off, the week that I started being both fired and dead, Hannibal the Victor, the crazy feminist Sarkeesian fan, turns out he's got a rap sheet for something sexual with someone underage.
But I want you guys to hear from me before you hear from Thunderfoot. that I have extensive information, comprehensive legal information that is official and that leads me to believe these allegations against Hannibal are not false. This is a really difficult thing for me to talk about because Hannibal was like one of my best friends. Like, I'm gonna disable comments on this video because I don't need people saying, oh, you should know better to be friends than men who claim they're feminists because what did you expect? Like,
actually, JJ, I'd listen to them. Because honestly, I think you're being outrageously naive if you think that Hannibal was only interested in you for your sparkling personality. Even more ironic was when these allegations were first published, I was immediately skeptical because they were published on a website with a history of making baseless allegations of sexual misconduct. Yeah, Hannibal might be a fat, obnoxious lump whose mortal enemy is a gentle incline. Seems to be a general thing with social justice warrior feminist men. But as far as I was concerned, he was still innocent until proven guilty, or someone produced the actual court records, and some random accusation from some dodgy website just wasn't gonna cut it. Nor did I actually have time to look into it at the time, because I was doing the science stuff. Someone else, however, did. And it turns out that while I like innocent until proven guilty, that Hannibal was actually proven guilty, and it's all there in the public court records. I mean, there's almost this sort of Ted Haggard-esque thing to it, that these male feminists, the more they talk about how rape offends them, the more likely they are to be, how should we say, sexually maladjusted. However, even at that, I was probably a damn sight more charitable than Hannibal than he would have been to anyone else. Because honestly, I don't know about the details, but America can be very prudish about sex with someone 1 hour before their 18th birthday is statutory rape with a minor, and 1 hour afterwards is fine. Without knowing the details, I'm not going to burn the man, nor do I particularly care to know what the details are, because even if I did, it's not something I particularly care about. I took Hannibal over the coals because of the stupid things he said and did in public.
You also caused a great deal of distress for somebody whom I'm very fond of. And I can't stress enough that in that regard, I will fuck you over for that one of these days if it's the last thing I ever do. I just want to make that clear, Phil.
For hate's sake, I spit my last breath at thee.
To quote Melville from Hell's Heart, I will spit my last breath at thee. I will not forget that until I'm in the grave. And that's the only way you're going to get out of basically paying for it in the end. I will find a way to basically screw you over for that. If Phil does get, let's say, charged with something, if people decide they're going to start a letter writing campaign, or they're going to, people en masse are going to contact his employer.
Not his criminal sexual behaviour. Although damn straight, I would have rubbed his nose in it that he was in no position to morally lecture others on what he thought was acceptable sexual behaviour. I'm sure I wouldn't hire him as a babysitter, but the whole thing about the criminal justice system is once you've paid your debt to society, you get to rejoin it. As the good man Kennedy said, forgive your enemies, but remember their names. However, people like Captain Potato Head were still blaming me for Laughing Witch deleting her own YouTube and Twitter accounts.
And now Laughing Witch has had to close both her YouTube channel and her Twitter page. So yeah, great one there, guys. Your supposed, love of free speech and all of that is fucking bullshit. When it comes down to it, you're happy to bully anyone into silence who disagrees with the Thunder Christ, aren't you?
Really? Oh, I get how this works. She was forced to delete her accounts by me, just like I was forced to flee my home and take refuge in a lab in a different country for fear of retaliation of the porcelain tub mafia. Yes, I was forced to flee my home by a hate mob currently known as feminism in exactly the same way that I forced Laughing Witch to delete her accounts.
I'm a pretty tough old bird, you know? I had a pretty crappy dad. I'm pretty tough.
Dude, she deleted her accounts because she's a coward who will not face the responsibilities for the accusations and challenges she made in public.
I'm not going to let these people intimidate me because they're stupid. They're really stupid. You know, this whole thing about the letter, who cares? You know, I've said I did it. I don't care. I'm not afraid to own my own actions. But part of the reason I wanted to do this video is these people can't do anything to me.
So, a few points in closing. 1. Winning. So ruthlessly logical and fact-based are the arguments made on this channel that they cannot rebut them on the open and level playing field of free speech, and so out of frustration they move on to targeting my job and career. 2. As far as I'm concerned, she does a sincere public apology and we're cool. And that's infinitely more generous than anything that they would have offered in return, because if the tables had been reversed, they would have been dancing in the streets if I had lost my job. Now, they may well reason that seeing as they were filing for bankruptcy anyway, why apologize? Well, that's a problem between them and their consciences. 3. Do not write this off as mere drama. Nobel Prize winners have been sacked for less. And I know scientists, real scientists, have looked at the shit that I get and are scared off because of it. Having people scope for your livelihood simply because you present better arguments than them online is not a fun experience. And while I don't generally put videos like this into the Patreon supported feed, nor am I going to add this one, I am immeasurably grateful to those who do offer their support that way, as this does give me a significant degree of security.